You know that feeling when you're walking down the street and someone up ahead with like a brightly colored clipboard makes direct eye contact with you?
Oh yeah, the immediate panic.
Right, like the sudden overwhelming urge to just suddenly check your phone, look incredibly busy,
Yeah.
maybe walk just a little bit faster, you clutch your wallet a little tighter.
You'll do anything to avoid the clipboard.
Exactly. And that exact same reflex kicks in the second someone at the front of a room starts talking about giving money. Especially when that room happens to be a church.
Oh, for sure. The immediate, almost instinctive assumption for so many of you listening is probably that someone's getting hustled.
Right. And honestly, that defensiveness is the perfect starting line for today's deep dive. Because we are unpacking this complete paradigm shift regarding giving and finances. And this is all drawn from the teachings of Reverend Letty Carr.
Yeah, we have some incredible source material today. We're looking at her Bible study notes
Hmm.
and a transcript from a discipleship session she actually led on giving.
And the whole mission of this deep dive, the entire thrust of her material, is designed to move you from a mindset of, obligation, which just feels heavy and resentful and totally transactional, to a mindset of investment.
Which is a huge shift. And what I love is that Reverend Carr, she doesn't shy away from that whole clipboard avoiding skepticism. She actually leans right into it.
Yeah, she openly admits it.
She does. She says when she first came to her faith, she had those exact same misgivings. She literally thought, oh, these people are just trying to hustle me out of my money.
Which is so refreshing to hear from a leader.
Right. Validating that skepticism is such a necessary first step because, it acknowledges the reality of that apprehension. But then the material counters that initial defensiveness by introducing this ancient concept from the book of Proverbs, specifically Proverbs 3.9 to 10.
The first fruits principle.
Exactly. The text directs people to honor the Lord with their wealth and with the best part of everything they produce.
And that phrasing, best part, that completely redefines the timing, right? And the quality of the gift. It's the first fruit, not the leftovers.
Yeah, it's not looking at your bank account at the end of the month, seeing you have like $20 left and throwing that in the offering plate just out of some sense of duty.
Right, because that's obligation. But Carr describes this as an act of, strict prioritization. She likens it to waking up early with the specific intent to read and set the spiritual order of the day. Like, you give the first moments of your time, and similarly, the first portion of your resources.
Which, if you think about it, makes total sense.
It really does. And it actually mirrors secular financial advice, like the whole concept of paying yourself first.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Because financial advisors are constantly warning that if you don't route money into your savings account before you pay your bills or buy groceries, you will just absorb that money into your lifestyle. Like, you'll never save a dime.
And the psychological mechanism at play here is identical, but the beneficiary is reversed. Instead of prioritizing, a personal savings account, you're actively choosing to prioritize a kingdom purpose.
Wow, yeah. So giving first kind of forces the issue.
Right, and it effectively eliminates the scarcity mindset.
Yeah.
Because human nature guarantees that if you wait until the end of the month to be generous, you will invariably feel like you just don't have the capacity to give.
There's always something, a rising utility bill or...
An unexpected expense, or just a sudden desire to buy something new. But giving the first fruits establishes this core, non-negotiable value that dictates all your other spending.
It tells your brain what matters most.
Exactly. It signals to the brain what the priority is, and then you just adapt your lifestyle to function on the remainder.
But, okay, adapting that lifestyle raises a really practical issue. Because when you feel your budget is already stretched to the absolute limit, finding that initial percentage to give, it feels mathematically impossible for a lot of people.
And Reverend Carr's answer to this is brutal. It is a brutal look at our everyday spending habits.
She really calls us out.
She provides this major reality check on the fluff in our budgets.
Yeah.
She tells a story about finding a pair of really cute shoes in her closet.
Oh, the shoe story. Yes.
She bought them 10 years prior, thought they were adorable, and literally never wore them once.
A decade. A decade passed with those shoes just sitting in a closet, taking up space.
And representing frozen capital. That's money that could have been doing something. And then she transitions from the closet to our daily habits, pointing out routine trips to places like 7-Eleven.
Right, getting Slurpees and chips.
People routinely buy Slurpees, chips, all these convenience items without a second thought. And she highlights the actual economic reality of those small transactions. She says, all you are really doing is enriching the Southland Corporation, the parent company of 7-Eleven.
Which is such a wild way to think about a quick snack run, but it forces you, like anyone looking at their own bank statements or credit card apps right now, to do a serious audit. How much fluff is hiding in plain sight?
It's usually a lot more than we want to admit.
Right, because those unworn shoes or those random convenience store runs, they're a steady drain on your potential to make a tangible impact. Reverend Carr proposes taking those exact same few dollars, the money we let slip through our fingers on sugar and fat and impulse buys, and purposefully reallocating them.
Yeah, she points out that those diverted Slurpee funds, when you combine them with the giving of others, could send a child to a youth retreat or like a Christian summer camp.
Which is incredible. And the underlying psychology of this reallocation, it's really a shift in identity, isn't it?
Oh, 100%. It's a transition from evaluating what you're giving up to focusing on what you're actually gaining. Missing out on the momentary satisfaction of a sugary drink is heavily outweighed by the eternal benefit of altering a kid's trajectory.
So it shifts the giver from being this passive consumer of goods into an active contributor to humanity.
Exactly. And Carr poses a really direct question here about legacy. She asks, what do you want your legacy to be? A collection of unworn shoes and a fully funded convenience store habit? Or a life that demonstrably improved the conditions of others?
But, shifting your mindset to save those Slurpee dollars creates a new problem.
The trust issue.
Yeah, exactly. Who do you trust with that diverted cash? Because if I'm giving up my comfort, the institution receiving it better be doing something substantial. I mean, we've all seen the headlines about institutional mismanagement. People hold onto their wallets for very good reason.
And Reverend Carr addresses this with incredibly blunt advice. She explicitly states that if a church is not a good steward of your money, you should leave that church.
Just flat out leave.
Period. She sets an uncompromising standard for institutional stewardship.
Wow.
She demands that the institution demonstrate a tangible, macro-level impact.
And the source material uses her own church as the prime example of this, right? First Baptist Church of Glenarden.
Yeah, under the leadership of Pastor John K. Jenkins Sr., the scale of their operation perfectly illustrates what pooled resources can achieve when they're actually managed correctly.
Because Pastor Jenkins oversees resources that could easily purchase fleets of luxury vehicles or, mansions.
But the organizational focus remains strictly on service.
And the resulting mobilization is just massive. I was reading this part and was blown away. Those pooled resources turn into like $300,000 to $400,000 sent directly to Houston after a devastating hurricane.
Wow.
Yeah. They turn into entire truckloads of goods shipped to New Orleans following those catastrophic floods. They even resulted in a $5 million investment to build infrastructure and schools and churches in Peru.
$5 million. That's the power of collective giving when the fluff is reallocated. And to ground this in practical reality, Reverend Carr points to her own professional role within the organization.
Right, she's not just a preacher.
No, she is the in-house counsel for the church. So she is literally the one reading the contracts, reviewing the legalities, and ensuring that the funds are managed ethically so the less fortunate are genuinely helped.
It really demystifies the whole concept of church giving. It reveals the hard administrative machinery that's required to execute charity on a global scale.
Yeah, it's not just thoughts and prayers. It's contracts and logistics.
And she also brings that reality back down to the local kind of unglamorous necessities of running a building.
Right, the plumbing.
Yeah, because the gospel might be free, but the mechanisms to share it certainly aren't. Utility companies, they don't give you a free pass just because you're a church.
Nope. If a congregation misses a payment, the power gets cut off, just like anyone else's.
Exactly. The cameras used to broadcast the services. They cost money. The carpet costs money. Just having clean chairs for people to sit on costs money. It's a very necessary reality check regarding the physical environment that allows people to gather, find community, and hear a message of hope in the first place.
The continuous financial upkeep is just non-negotiable.
And Reverend Carr highlights a very specific irony here that I thought was brilliant. She says nobody walks into a McDonald's, demands a free bag of fries, and gets angry when they are asked to pay.
Obviously not.
Right. Yet, people will walk into a beautifully maintained church, utilize the air conditioning, sit on clean furniture, listen to a full production, and expect absolutely everything to be free.
It's so true.
It's like expecting to drink pure, clean water from a tap in your house, but flat out refusing to pay for the plumbing that got it there.
That's a great analogy. And when that plumbing functions correctly on an institutional level, you get the mobilization we just talked about, like in Houston and Peru. And this is a big transition in the source material, she also addresses the micro-level return for the individual giver.
The personal impact.
Right. Reverend Carr insists there is a highly personal reciprocal return rooted deeply in biblical promises. So we move from paying the light bill to the economics of sowing and reaping. She specifically unpacks Luke 6.38 and 2 Corinthians 9.
And the core principle she extracts there is that if you sow sparingly, you reap sparingly. But if you sow bountifully, you reap bountifully. She uses this really evocative phrase from Luke. A gift will be given back, good measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over.
Pressed down, shaken together. I love that imagery.
Right. It's an image of absolute abundance. The container isn't just full, the contents have been compacted so more can fit, and it still just overflows. And she backed this up with personal testimonies. Going back to shoes.
Always back to the shoes.
Always. She details a time when her finances were really lean, and she quietly desired a new pair of black shoes. But she didn't voice this desire to anyone, she just kept it to herself.
And then what happened?
Suddenly, her estranged sister, who wasn't even speaking to the family at the time, completely isolated from them, she just walks into her garage and hands her a brand new pair of black pumps and a dress.
That is wild. A completely unexpected provision from, like, the most incredibly unlikely source.
Exactly. And the material also details the story of her mortgage. Right around the time she signed a mortgage and took on a car loan, she felt called to take a massive pay cut to become a chaplain.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and her husband, who was an accountant, looked at the raw data and concluded the math just didn't work.
I mean, an accountant would.
Right. He suggested she needed to reconsider this calling because it was financially impossible. Yet they maintained their commitment to generous giving, and she testifies that they were sustained through those lean years, eventually celebrating paying the mortgage off in full.
Which is an amazing story.
Yeah.
But looking at this objectively, it's very easy to hear phrases like pressed down, shaken together, and stories about receiving new shoes or paying off mortgages, and start thinking of this system like a cosmic ATM.
Yes, exactly. Like, put in $10 today, the universe owes me $100 by next Tuesday.
Yeah, but reading through Carr's notes, the source material actually guards against that purely transactional mindset. It's really careful there. The promise of the pressed down return in Luke 6.38 is explicitly surrounded by commands about immaterial behavior.
Right. It says, judge not, condemn not, forgive.
Exactly. The reciprocity is entirely holistic. The pressed down principle applies to the entire posture of the heart, not just your cash.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
Carr notes that if you sow forgiveness generously, forgiveness comes back to you pressed down and running over. If you sow love, love returns. But conversely, if you are highly judgmental and stingy with grace, that exact same measure will be used back on you.
So the currency isn't just dollars.
Exactly. She emphasizes that the blessings returned are often immaterial. She describes receiving mental acuity that confounds doctors or experiencing a peace that surpasses all understanding, even when the bank account is nearly empty. The return on investment is a sustained life, not necessarily a luxurious one. I love this quote from her father in the notes. He said, "None of us are in Miss Meal College," meaning they might be eating beans instead of steak, but they are sustained.
Miss Meal College. I like that. And because it's this holistic posture of the heart, this view of generosity cannot possibly be confined to, like, a Sunday morning offering plate. It has to dictate everyday interactions.
It has to bleed into the street.
Right. Carr introduces Proverbs 3.27. Do not withhold good from those to whom it is due when it is in the power of your hand to do so. And she illustrates this with this incredibly poignant story from a doctor's office.
Oh, this is a great example.
Yeah, she is just going about her day and sees a man at the front desk visibly struggling when he's told the cost of his medical copay.
Right.
He actually mentions out loud that he had to park one of his cars because gas was just too expensive to drive it.
And Reverend Carr realizes in that exact moment, she has the power in her hand to do good.
She does.
She simply steps up and offers to pay his copay for him right there.
Without hesitation.
She wasn't preparing to give to a church in that moment. She was responding to a human need because she lives in this constant posture of readiness to help.
And that completely challenges the common reflex we all have to just offer thoughts and prayers to people who are struggling, right? We see a need and we say, oh, I'll pray for you.
Yeah, it's a default.
But Carr brings in this insight based on the book of James, arguing that you shouldn't just say, I hope you get some food and let me pray for you, when you have been positioned and resourced to be the actual physical answer to their prayer right then and there.
That's powerful, because generosity is framed here not as an event you attend, but as an identity. It is the daily recognition that your resources, whether that's money, time, or emotional energy, are tools meant to be deployed for the benefit of others.
Man. So the journey through this material, it really moves from that initial skepticism of the clipboard and the offering plate right through the reality of auditing the fluff of unworn shoes and 7-Eleven runs.
It covers so much ground.
It does. It covers the macro-level impact of funding the plumbing of reliable institutions and explores the holistic return on investment that comes from living with a generous posture. And it leads to Reverend Carr asking a really piercing question. Where is your treasure? Because wherever that is, that's where your heart is anchored.
That is the ultimate takeaway. And as the material concludes, it leaves us with this deeply provocative thought drawn from 2 Corinthians 8:9.
Which is,
Well, the verse notes that Jesus was inherently rich, possessing everything in the heavenly realm. Yet, for the sake of humanity, he intentionally became poor so that others, through his poverty, might become rich.
wow, it completely upends the traditional American dream, doesn't it?
Totally flips it on its head.
Because the cultural default is to accumulate, right? To hoard, to build the highest, thickest walls around your own financial safety net. But this text poses this staggering alternative. What if the ultimate goal of acquiring resources in this life isn't to build an impenetrable fortress for yourself? What if the goal is to intentionally and joyfully empty your surplus for others, mimicking that exact divine cycle of deliberate impoverishment?
That is something to chew on.
It really is. So the next time that reflex kicks in to clutch your wallet or look away from the clipboard, just pause. Ask yourself whether you are protecting your security or simply withholding an investment meant to change the world.
Take a look in your closets. Keep your eyes open at the doctor's office.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and we'll see you next time.